Hey, this is Grant. Thank you for joining. In this episode, we take a look at how to get more time for your money.
Welcome to Click AI Radio, where you'll learn the secrets to transforming your small to medium business. Grant has been helping businesses transform using technology for over 30 years. Advanced technologies like artificial intelligence have been available only to large companies and advanced technical teams. Grant will discuss how you can use to leverage AI and other technologies to grow your small to medium business. As a gift, Grant is offering his ebook, AI for Sales Growth, at clickairadio.com. Now, here's your host and biz tech geek, Grant Larson.
Okay, thanks for joining. So, time. What a crazy concept, right? Have you guys ever listened to Myron Golden? If not, you should look him up. He's got a great segment on this, right? Which is, what's the relationship of time and money, right? We've all heard the statement, time is money, but Myron really throws some rocks at that, right? And he convinces you, you know what? It's actually, time is more valuable than money. And that's how I feel about it as well. It is more valuable than money. So what is the value of it? What's the value of your time? You know, if you looked at 2,500 hours, working hours per year, and let's say you made $12,316 per year, then your time is worth $4.93 an hour. You're like, well, how'd you come up with that? At one point, that was the poverty line in the United States. So $4.93 an hour is what your time is worth. So that today, that's actually that's actually below the poverty line. So the question is, what is your time worth? I have a brother, speaking very personally here, I have a brother who has ALS. And it's been disabling him over the last few years. For him and for me, time is the most precious commodity that we have. And it's even become more pronounced since this has come about. So when life hands you a situation like that, it innately changes the value of time, as it has for us, for him especially, but for all of us involved. Now, you know, a second is still a second, right? And a minute's still a minute. From that perspective, nothing's changed, right? Time still clicks on from that perspective continuously. But what has changed is the value, the intrinsic value that we associate with that second or with that minute. Now, associated with this is the perception of how fast time goes by, right? And we've all heard of studies like this. There was a study of the fluidity of time. And scientists were looking at how to figure out our emotions affecting our perception of time value and how fast time goes. And you know, we've all experienced this, right? When we're doing something that we think is fun or we think it's a high value activity to us, time tends to go more quickly. That's our perception anyway, right? And then when we're bored, then you know, the perception is that time seems to drag, and we've all experienced that phenomenon. But these scientists were looking to sort of prove that. So they did some experiments, and in one experiment, the researchers took some trained participants, and they took them to tell the difference between pictures. And pictures that were shown for a short period of time or a long period of time. And the participants then viewed the pictures, some that were neutral, right? Or some that were positive, or some that were maybe not as exciting, right? So they had these different ranges, like some were flowers, some were delicious desserts, right? Some were geometric shapes. I guess if you're a mathematician, though, that might be pretty exciting. So for each picture, though, they had to indicate whether the picture had been displayed for a short or a long period of time. And just as the researchers had thought, the participants perceived the enticing pictures of the desserts as having been displayed for a shorter amount of time, regardless of the actual duration, than compared to other geometric shapes that were shown, or even some pleasing pictures of flowers. So in general, the people said, hey, the dessert pictures weren't shown as long as some of the others. Fascinating, right? They also found that the perceived amount of time for the enticing pictures was also related to when the participants had eaten that day. So if they found out that someone had eaten recently, then those people actually felt like these dessert pictures were displayed for a longer period of time. So some of it gets quite situational, right? In terms of what have we already been satisfied, right? So if I'm being given some information in a business, and if I've not had some either validation or other positive things taking place, then sometimes I respond to that situation differently than if I have had those other sort of mental mental validations, right? And we do that as humans with food and food pictures, right? As well as with other things. I also want to switch and say one more thing about this. Turns out that these scientists looked at fear, right? And of course, we've all experienced fear to one degree or another. And of all the human emotions, they felt like that was the most intensely examined one in the study that they should go after. And so what they found was this relationship between fear and emotions, right? The emotion of fear and time perception. So what they did was they took a bunch of people and think Disney World, right? They took a bunch of people, and what they did was they strapped these devices on them, and then they sent them on to a 15-story drop on an amusement park ride. I think one's called Tower of Terror. I think that's it. I don't think that's 15 stories though. But in any event, what they did was they asked the people, okay, now that you've gone through that, how long? What was your time perception of going through that fearful event? And when they asked, almost all the individuals overestimated the duration of the fall, right? In other words, oh, we must have fallen for whatever it was, 5 seconds, when in fact maybe it was 2 seconds. Whatever the difference was, just about everybody overestimated that. And from that, they started to derive that when we have some threatening stimuli, that it causes some intense, physiological reactions that distort our internal sense of the passage of time. And this happens also in business as well. I found that these emotions applied in one case recently where we had found some insights, right, that were, we'd gathered, we'd shared with a professional team. It turns out that the insights did not cast a positive light on some of the previous business behaviors, right? Mentally, I suppose it felt like they were dropping, 15 floors down. And therefore, they were struck with some fear elements, right? And in this case, they came back and they said, well, felt like too much time had been spent on these kinds of insights and that was not as productive. Interesting, right? And the team was sent back to get other insights. So one of the things about AI is that it will identify things that may not appear as positive, right? It might say stuff like, hey, if you continue to sell this particular product on a Tuesday, it's actually not as helpful for you, right? You're actually going to get less revenue if you continue to do that, right? So quit wasting time, right, on those kinds of things. Rather, if you do it on the second Friday of each month, et cetera, then this is going to be a higher probability, and in fact, that's what it's been in the past. So in other cases, I found that when business insights from AI are shared that focused on building on the good things, then the team typically seemed to be more favorably acceptable of that. And they felt like then it was worth their time, right? Fascinating. And so there's a certain amount of vulnerability that comes with this AI stuff, right? That if you tend to be more vulnerable as a person, meaning you're willing to accept both sides of the story, then you tend to react to it better. Kind of like, hey, if you ate well, before you did that experiment that those scientists did, then maybe you felt like the actual dessert pictures weren't as enticing. And similar in a business sense, if you come into an AI analysis report, right, on the business, you kind of have to eat well mentally before you show up. Because once you do, then when you come in, you got to be willing to say, hey, I can hear some things that maybe we should stop doing or maybe not do as much. And definitely let's keep leaning into the good things for sure. Interesting correlation, right? In the end, though, we all know time is more valuable than money. In fact, Myron Golden, I love the way how he points it out. He said, hey, if I wrote each of you a check for $100,000, who would like that? And then, of course, everyone's raising their hands. Yeah, sure, I'd love that. And they're like, okay, but what if I told you, you're going to die today, right? So, well, okay, that's not as valuable to you. Well, what if that $100,000, though, allowed you to get the one cure that would take care of you and it would heal you 100% of the time? Suddenly everyone would take it and they would use it, to certainly, extend their life. Our perception of time and its value seems to have a connection with emotions that are based on our immediate interests and also in the avoidance of fear. And I think what I found over the years is applying AI in our business, it requires some vulnerability to receive the insights which can build on the good things we're doing, but as well as to give us some insights on the negative things that we should stop. So to learn more about how to grow your business with AI, join me on a webinar on Thursday. It's at 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Go to clickai.com/breakthetrap. Break the trap. clickai.com/breakthetrap. Thanks for joining. And until next time, get more time for your money using AI.
Thank you for joining Grant on Click AI Radio. Don't forget to subscribe and leave feedback. And remember to download your free ebook. Visit clickairadio.com now.